2020. Sean Bemis, Chair. Larry Lyons, Rick Kaminsky. Article 1 will be decided by Australian ballot. Let's go to Article 2. I will refrain from reading A through W. I've already done that, and I will read Article 2 to see if the town will vote $12,055 for human services to be allocated as listed in the warning. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second on Article 2 to see if the town will vote $12,055 for human services to be allocated as printed in the warning. Is there any discussion on Article 2? Anyone at all want to weigh in on Article 2? If there's no discussion, we will vote Article 2 to see if the town will vote $12,055 for human services to be allocated as follows, listed in the warning. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. I think the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise $1,227,106 in taxes to pay estimated expenses in the amount of $1,327,106. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion to put the budget article on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on Article 3. It is on the floor to see if the town will vote to raise $1,227,106 in taxes to pay estimated expenses in the amount of $1,327,106. Yes?
Hi, so Carol Goodwin. So we had this same discussion last year. We budgeted to end up with just below $1 million in cash, and this doesn't include the restricted funds. We ended up with a budget surplus of $514,000 in excess of what was actually budgeted. So our cash on hand, not including restricted funds, is on the order of about $1.5 million. In past years, we've had higher amounts of cash. We've never had this amount of cash. And in past years, in 2016, when we had excess cash, the budget raise was reduced by about $300,000 from what the budgeted amount that needed to be approved. So what I'm asking is, rather than requesting a budget raise of $1.2 million, can we take advantage of the fact that we have this excess cash and reduce the budget raise to $1 million and change?
Well,
Page 35 on your books.
So the answer is, if you're going to try to make an amendment that much to the budget, I don't think it would be germane for the people sitting here, but that's really a question. If you have a question for the budget, I think you should ask the select board.
Well, I believe I was directing it to the select board.
Okay?
Wow.
It would be a reduction of $200,000.
Okay. We're debating on how to answer that one.
Take your time.
The extra cash you talked about on hand isn't clearly identified to me as a new selectman yet. And to answer that question, we have been in touch with, of course we're communicating with Sandy, and we've been in touch with Nimerick, who developed and sold us and maintains our software for our accounting system. And they are, in fact, scheduled to come here starting in March on a regular basis to help us understand our accounting system better and identify those type of surpluses. So to agree that there's that type of surplus at this time, I'm not prepared to do that.
But we have audited financial statements from R.H. Smith that we pay quite a bit of money for, and that's where these numbers come from. So those are accounted statements that are audited.
True.
So if,
But the way the details in the budget are identified with certain numbers for reserve funds that may not have been spent yet, but they have, they are destined for expenditures. There's just too many questions, and I couldn't support that type of amendment right now without having more information, which we're in the process of trying to gather.
well, if we're looking at $500,000 that is in question, that is somewhat disturbing, isn't it? To
Very,
you?
very disturbing.
So,
Yes.
I mean, don't we
That's
have a
why-
bank account that we can look at and says, this is how much money is in our bank account?
Well, yeah, I mean, the bank account doesn't lie, and that's what you're basically looking at is, you're looking at the bottom line, correct?
I'm looking at page 35.
Okay, so, but we're going through, right now, yes, the money is all there, otherwise R.H. Smith would say, okay, there's a discrepancy here. It's all there. Some of it hasn't been actually appropriated where it's supposed to be, and there's another thing that we're doing with the NEMRIC that, I don't know if you're familiar, NEMRIC, what he just explained is, that's the bookkeeping system that we use. It's
Yes.
like a very, very complicated QuickBooks that is, beyond me anyways. So they're coming in here to simplify all that because we also have, the equipment fund money has gone into different categories. Everything's there, but things aren't in the right categories where they're supposed to be. So I think that at this point, the money's there, but to say, okay, you're right, let's knock it down a couple 100,000 off the million, and I can't comfortably do that myself either, without understanding more about it. And I know that's not a clear answer at all, and I understand that. I can see the look on your face, but it's the best I can do. I'm 2 budgets into this. This is Rick's first year with the budgeting. It's not like there's money missing. Maybe we'll be able to do something different, but
Well, I almost
To get the
feel
two
like
of
this
us
would
to
be
say,
something
okay.
that we wouldn't vote on until we get the correct numbers. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of money, and
The
it keeps
numbers are-
growing every year, and our taxes keep going up, and yet we're sitting here with $1.5 million, and you can't even guarantee that we actually have it.
it's there. You're looking at it. It's there. R.H. Smith says it's there. I'm not saying it's not there.
All I know is in past years, even as recently as 2016, if we had excess funds, then I can see we're, cutting it back 100,000. I mean, just how about another 100,000? It just seems absurd that we're taxing so heavily and then continuing to grow our cash balances, and our delinquent tax balances continue to grow. So it's just, and I don't know, do we even collect interest on these balances? Do we get any kind of compensation for sitting there with all that cash?
Yeah, I'm sure we do. That Sandy would know that.
Yes,
We have
just-
interest-bearing accounts, correct?
We just changed banks, and now we will be getting interest. So,
That's nice.
there's charges that go with it, but the interest will outweigh the expenses. We changed to People's United Bank as opposed to Citizens.
That's my bank too.
So, so that one, but we're really in a kind of a transitional state right now. And as Rick and Sean said, NEMRIC is gonna help us. This accounting system was set up 15, 17 years ago, and it does need adjustments. So that's what we'll be working on. But a lot of those monies that we have, they're funds, and they might be allocated to
No,
certain
these
things.
don't even take into account the allocated funds, because the number's even higher. The restricted and allocated funds
Well,
are
it
not
isn't
even,
that much for restricted.
not included in that, so.
So,
I don't
so
know, I mean, I don't know if I'm the
having
only
had that
person that's-
discussion, having had that discussion, do you want to make some sort of amendment?
I would like to request that we amend it at least to reduce it to 1.127 as opposed to 1.227, whatever the number is.
I think that's a reasonable amendment. I think it's a reasonable thing for people to consider. It's not too far out of where the budget is. If you wanted to cut it in half, I think that would be unreasonable. Nobody could expect that, but I think people can expect some debate on the budget. So are you proposing an amendment, and how would you phrase that?
Yes, I would like to propose an amendment to see if the town would vote to raise 1.127106 in taxes to pay estimated expenses in the amount of 1.327106.
Okay, so we have, excuse me? I don't think you can change the estimated, well, you want to change the estimated expenses too?
No, I didn't change that.
So you want to change this to read, to see if the town will vote to raise 1.127 or $1,127,106 in taxes to pay estimated expenses in the amount of $1,327,106. Do you have a second on that amendment? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to change the budget, lower the budget, lower the taxes raised, not lower the budget per se, lower the taxes to see if the town will vote to raise $1,127,106 in taxes to pay estimated expenses in the amount of $1,327,106. That's an amendment. We're just going to vote on the amendment next on whether or not to lower the amount of taxes raised. Do we have any discussion on that? Okay, Midge, I think you were next.
Hi, Midge Tucker. I oppose lowering it. Number one, because in looking through the town report, only in one instance I found that we paid out almost $100,000 over budget to the Sheriff's Department this year. $100,000 more than we took in. So, $100,000 isn't very much when it comes to our tax rate. Our municipal tax rate is low as it is. Our payment to the schools is higher, and that's going to continue to go up. So maybe what we budgeted for that portion of the taxes is going to be more than what we have too. Plus, there is nothing in here, no detailed listing of accounts, and as opposed to what we have in those accounts and what is restricted funds, like the equipment fund, like the reappraisal fund. That's going to go up. Those balances are going to go up every year until we buy a new piece of equipment. So that's understandable. And I think the new system, when it comes out, should have a section, a spreadsheet, that differentiates between funds that are usable and funds that are restricted for certain purposes.
Okay, Bob, you had your hand up?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say similar to what Midge said. I don't think we should fool with it because, like, you don't know how much gravel you're going to need. You don't know if you're going to replace a bridge. A lot of unforeseens, and if that's what they budgeted, until they can give us a better list, maybe next year, just what's what. I think we should leave the budget alone. I wouldn't touch it.
Anyone else on the amendment? Yes, sir.
I would just agree that
What's your name?
Mike Rose,
Okay.
and I would just agree. I think you want to build a substantial cash reserve to deal with the unknown.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Lee
I can address that one. Lee, that's a result of some grant funding that we're going to receive that will be on top of the taxes collected. That makes up the difference. That's where the revenue's going to come from. Now, in regards to the amendment, I would also have to disagree with that, and I would ask the voters to give us another year, and to the best of my ability, we're going to come up with a better explanation by next town meeting, but I hate to cut it short without knowing where the money's going to come from. I mean, I know it looks like a surplus right now, but I'm not convinced it's a surplus. I'm totally convinced the money is there. I don't think it disappeared, but we just can't identify where the different funds are in the different accounts right now, and we need to sort that out before we make a substantial change in the budget. That's my opinion.
Would anyone else like to speak on the amendment? If no one else wants to weigh in on the amendment, we are going to vote, and this is not your budget vote, we are going to vote the amendment to see if the town will lower the amount to be raised in taxes from $1,227,106 to $1,107,106. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say no. No. The noes appear to have it. You accept that? Okay. Okay, now we have our budget article on the table to see if the town will vote to raise $1,227,106 in taxes to pay any estimated expenses in the amount of $1,327,106. Is there any discussion on the budget? Nothing? Okay. We're going to vote Article 3 to see if the town will vote to raise $1,227,106 in taxes to pay estimated expenses in the amount of $1,327,106. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Oh, the ayes appear to have it. You've passed your budget. Congratulations. Okay. Article 4, to see if the legal voters of the town vote to pay the treasurer real property taxes in 2 installments with due dates of September 1st, 2020 and February 1st, 2021 with an interest charge of 1% for the first 3 months and 1.5% thereafter for each month if each installment is not paid by the due date. After February 1st, 2021, any unpaid taxes would be charged an 8% collection fee plus the interest fees. Is there any discussion on Article 4? Yes, sir.
Yeah, questions.
State your name. We all know you, but not everybody knows you.
Tom Marone. Now everybody knows me.
There's no motion made.
What?
Is,
You're right. You're right. Do we have a motion? Thank you, Seymour. Glad to have you in the court.
Yeah, I'm through.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a second? Margaret Marone? Okay, I'm not going to read it again. Tom, you have the floor.
Tom, can you go to the microphone, please?
I could.
Stand up.
The question is this any different than it has been, and do we have to go through this every year?
That's a good question for the select board. Or for the town clerk.
I thought we did have to vote it in here, I made a mistake.
Because for a long time, we didn't.
Yeah, but I think the auditor said it was a good thing to put in there, so that's why it's in there.
I think the answer is inconclusive, actually, from what I hear. Yes, sir.
Excuse this, I don't know, even this microphone system don't work for some of us. We can't hear what's going on. Tom,
You-
close to that. Will you-
You want me to turn it up?
Yeah, turn it up or something, please.
I got it. Try that.
How's that?
Well, they can hear him, but they couldn't hear
I'll stand farther from the mic now.
Yeah, right.
I didn't hear Tom, I don't know what he said.
Yeah, they,
He wants to know what Tom said.
Any further discussion on Article 4? Okay, if there's no further discussion, excuse me?
You have to say what he said.
Yeah, because Tom, he still didn't hear what Tom had said. That, it was Tom's microphone, not yours.
Repeat the question.
Well, what Tom Marone said?
Yes, he could hear you fine. And you're
Tom Marone wanted to know if we have to continue to vote Article 4 every year, or is this a requirement? And we got a couple different answers, but basically, I don't know. I can tell you that it's on the warning every year, though.
Okay, can I just add a little fun to this?
Please.
For 42 years, I've been voting for it for 42 years, I think we should vote for it for another 42 years.
Glad to have your opinion. Is there any further discussion on Article 4? And by the way, there's two Toms here, so it took a second for me to figure out you were talking about Tom Marone. All those in favor of Article 4, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. I mean, clearly nobody objects to it that awful much. Article 5, to see if the town of Plymouth will rescind the town penalty for the late filing of the homestead declaration form by full-time residents on their Vermont state income tax form. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We'll put Article 5 on the floor, which is to see if the town of Plymouth will rescind the town penalty for the late filing of the homestead declaration form by full-time residents on their Vermont state income tax form. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
Paul Kowalski, what is the penalty?
Midge?
8%.
No, the penalty from the state, what do they charge?
8%.
It is 8%?
The homestead
Of your,
Yes.
Why did I just?
Okay.
How does this differ from what's already the current status? What does this change mean for?
It means that if you are a homeowner and you file a Vermont income tax return.
Can everybody hear her?
If you file your Vermont income tax return, there is a form where you can file for a homestead rebate. You need to file that by April 15th. If you don't, you're penalized. The state gives you a penalty of 8%, and the town gets that 8%. However, in the past, last year we only had 2 people who didn't file on time. There's not very many people who do not file on time. So the coffers of the town get maybe about $600 a year from people who do not file their homestead on time. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. So we could do away with it.
In the back?
Yeah, howdy. Keith Capolini, when you can talk into this thing. I'm probably one of the 2 people, because I came in to talk to Sandy about this. The form is HS 122. You file it when you file your taxes. You're supposed to file it by the 15th. For whatever reason, I always find myself filing it after the 15th. The state of Vermont charges you $15 if you do that. But state statute also reads that the town is allowed to levy a tax of 3 to 8% on top of that $15. It's up to the town to decide. So I had suggested to Sandy, you know, if people are repeat offenders like me, maybe you charge them 3% instead of the full 8%, or perhaps we get rid of it altogether, because, you know, if the state's only charging 15, I don't see the point in charging 8% on top of, you know, on a full-time, you know, resident here that's paying their taxes. So that's where I was coming from with that. I didn't even realize it was on the agenda, but since I'm guilty as charged, I offer that.
Thank you.
I would say,
In the back, Midge is next.
Does that affect when the money comes through from the state? Do they have to keep sending you little bits and pieces
No,
here
they
and
send the
there?
whole kit and caboodle.
Does it come, yes, but if it's a late filer,
It just comes through automatically to our checking account. we get a notification from the state.
Okay, so it
if
doesn't,
that assessment were $100, the state would send us that $100.
okay. All right, so it really doesn't have an effect on the time frame that we get our big amount of money.
Anyone else want to weigh in on Article 5? If there's no further discussion, we are going to vote Article 5 to see if the town of Plymouth will rescind the town penalty for the late filing of the homestead declaration form by full-time residents on their Vermont state income tax form. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. Motion is passed. Now, Article 7, to transact any other necessary and legal business, and as I've said before, this is the only time in the year we get together, so if you have anything you want to talk to your neighbors about, this would be a good time to do it. I had a request before from Seymour, and you're next. We're going to hear everybody, and you're third. Good. Seymour, go grab a mic.
Do you think I really need a mic?
Either that or stand up and yell.
This is not going to be long, it's very quick. In the year 2000, the former school, students and staff had buried a time capsule. And they're planning to bring it up. On June 13th, Saturday at 12 o'clock, they're going to start. Hopefully by 1 o'clock, they'll have it dug up. And we'll go and look at what the genius has put in there. After that, they're planning to do some kind of a get-together. I don't have any full information for that. There will be information put in the Plymouth Press and the local newspapers. There is a piece of paper on the table that has this basic information. Ryan Dorsey, who is a student, has been the Green Master for this. Steve Kanan, who is one of the teachers at that time, as well as Teresa Ehlers, who was the principal back then, are all involved in getting this together. Ryan Dorsey would love if you could to email her if you're planning to come, just so she can get a head count. Her email is rhdorsey@gmail.com. That's also on that green piece of paper that's on the desk. Do you have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Seymour. Midge?
Okay, this has been really making a hole in my side. We have outstanding overdue taxes of $235,000. About a third of that, maybe a quarter of that, is Hawk. What is being done to ensure that we get our money from Hawk? Anybody answer that? And why are they being allowed to owe so much? Do we have liens on the property?
The taxes are a lien.
No, I mean a physical lien.
You don't have to do a physical lien, because the taxes are a first lien on
Okay.
all properties.
Is there a reason, and I'm not addressing her, I'm addressing the select
I'd
board.
say that's a question for the select board.
Yes, is there a reason why all of these are not being followed up on? I mean, Bruce is 79 and he's still working every night of the week so we can pay our taxes. Why do we have so many in here?
I'm not sure on that. I mean, the delinquent tax collector is voted in by you. So, I mean, I've got no idea how to answer that question whatsoever. I mean, I think that should be up to the delinquent tax collector to explain how her office works.
My policy is if they are 2 years delinquent, not 2 years that are delinquent, but 2 years delinquent, then they will go for tax sale. But they aren't 2 years delinquent yet. They only became delinquent, first one came delinquent last year, 2019, and the second one became delinquent, and they are trying to get them paid because of all this litigation at Hawk. And they don't have the money. They don't have any money coming in.
Okay, that sounds like the best answer we can get for you to your question now. Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, I'd just like a quick review of the finances involved with the sheriff. I'm not questioning why we're doing it, I just have a hard time, the town report all the time trying to find out the credits and the debits on that whole deal.
Okay.
I'll try and answer that, Tom. The information I got from my cheat sheet from Sandy says that the deficit is $64,691, which is the amount above and beyond what we collected from fines and fees from the Sheriff's Department. Now, the only explanation I can give is they do patrol 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 82 hours a week. They do a lot more than just write tickets. They do back road patrolling.
I'm not questioning any of that,
Okay. You're questioning,
just the finances.
okay. The information I got is it's costing the town at that last fiscal year $64,691, in addition to the fines that we collected. Does that answer your question?
And we budgeted how much?
50.
Okay. We spent $258,858, and we received back $194,159. What we budgeted, that's going to be hard for me to find.
50,000.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that
Budgeted 50,000.
okay. We budget. That's above and beyond the.
Well, that would have, so we're 14.6 over.
Right. Okay. I think that's the question you're answering. I think I was answering it wrong, Tom. Okay.
Okay. Any other business? Yes, sir.
Scott Hepler, Linesville Road. I don't see Laura in here. I just encourage us all, COVID-19 is at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center as of this afternoon. If anyone has visited there this week, we're maybe exposed. So I just want us all to wash our hands 20 seconds, cover our coughs and sneezes, and step away from someone who's coughing or sneezing.
Thank you.
I would add one thing, if you're sick.
Speak up. Speak up or take a mic because we want to all hear you.
I would add one thing, if you are sick, do not go to work. Be respectful of workers.
Good. Karen?
Is there anyone here that can talk to us about the school budget vote?
It's no. The answer is
When are we voting on the actual dollar amount for the school budget? Which article would that be?
no. This is the town meeting. We no longer have a school meeting,
I
unfortunately.
understand that, but we are voting tomorrow to let Barnard in. And then there's $2 amount votes if Barnard comes in, but then the town of, there will be another meeting on March 9th in Woodstock to vote on the school budget, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So how do we, as a taxpayer of Plymouth, vote on that dollar amount school budget? That's my question.
It's a very good question, but it's not a question for the town anymore.
Well, something that nobody has an answer is what you're
So in a few minutes, we're going to have Charlie Kimball address us, and maybe he'll have an answer, but I want to close the meeting before we do. Yes? Yes, you have a hand up?
I was just waving my hand, but actually I do.
Oh, wait, if you were...
Give me a chance, then I'll just, one more.
didn't want to buy it, really.
Oh, no, you opened it up, so. No, I was just curious. I know Lauren's done a tremendous job on the schoolhouse building. And there was a bit of a discussion in the select board report about things that have happened. My question is just, you know, where are we on? Have we finished everything that we need to do? Do we have enough money to cover? You know, we budgeted, we authorized $30,000 for it. I know she had some grant money that she got, and I know there's been a lot of activity there. I think the roof has been done, and there's been some other things done. But I was just curious if anybody could comment on where we are with that. And
There's money in the budget.
Yeah, there's,
She's talking about school budget, which is Windsor County Supervisory Union.
no, I'm talking about the school building.
Yeah, well, that's different from.
right, yeah, we're kind of jumping all over the place now,
Yeah,
so,
that's different from what I was talking
yeah,
about.
Just say,
yeah.
do you have anything else you want to say?
So, but no, just because I think hers is just really quick, and then we'll get right back to you guys stuff with what Karen had brought up, and then what Keith is going to talk about with the actual school budget. But as far as the schoolhouse itself, because we budgeted 30,000 and change or something, and it was supposed to, and it turned out to be, we needed to put a roof on the place, which cost that much money before we could address the problems underneath the roof. So now we're at that point. There is still going to be more, we're still going to have to allocate some more money to it. I don't know if it's in our, I think we've got something in the budget for it, but everything is still in the works. You know, so people looking and saying like, oh, the doors aren't painted. Well, okay, but the roof isn't leaking, so the doors aren't getting any worse.
So we're not voting on any.
We're not voting on anything to do with that. So no, this is about the actual school budget that we seem to have no say.
No, it doesn't make sense.
And so, Keith, I think,
Just,
there we go.
I'm still listed in the book as being a rep to the Windsor County
Right, which you are not.
Supervisory Union,
I know.
which I'm not.
Grab a mic.
I did that for the town for a year, and then I agreed to do it for a year, so I was your rep to the union. Anyone is welcome to go over to the meetings that they have over in the Woodstock and sit in and listen about what the union is up to. We are one of 5 towns that are part of that union, and we have 2 reps to the union, which we get to cast 2 votes. It's proportional. The bigger the town, the more votes you have in the union. Woodstock has the most, but we do have a say, and I can't tell you who those 2 people are. We're supposed to vote on them. Oh, it's you.
Yeah,
So you should say something then.
Yeah, when are we, I'm confused.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jen Flaster. I am your school board rep, along with Morgan Saylor, who couldn't make it tonight. So I think what you're speaking about is tomorrow is the Australian ballot to vote the school district budget. I think that the other budget on March 9th is probably the supervisory union budget. Any taxpayer is able to come to that meeting and vote.
So that's voting on the overall budget for the whole.
I think the Australian ballot is the big school district budget tomorrow.
Well,
The supervisory union is
so
a,
there's 2 articles. Shall the voters of the Windsor Central Modified Union School District approve the merger of the Barnard School District? That's 1
correct.
vote. And then 3 and 4. If Article 2 is approved, then it's $1 amount. If it's Article
Correct, because
4, then it's another amount.
if Barnard is part of the district, it's a different cost, it's a different
Right.
budget.
So where do we vote yes, no on budget? What article?
So I think you have to vote yes to both of those, because in which eventuality will
Okay, so on those you were gonna vote yes or no?
correct.
Okay, that's what I'm just trying to.
Correct.
It's very confusing the way.
And
you
if
wrote
there's
it.
any other votes mentioned in there, they're probably about the supervisory union, which is
Which is what we're part
on
of.
March 9th.
Yeah, because it says they need to consider the first article. At that meeting, they will be considering Article 2, then they can decide on what they're gonna vote on. Something like that. It's in the,
I don't have it in front of me, so I
I
can't.
know, I brought it with me.
Okay, is there no discussion, no side discussions?
Settles that, I guess.
Okay, is there any other Any other business? Yes, ma'am.
Chair Rose, I was just curious if anything's happening on the general store or the country store?
Anybody know anything about the country store? Yes, I agree. This is probably not the best place to get answers for that. Before I adjourn this meeting, I would just like, excuse me?
I have the survey too to go over.
Okay, yeah. Rick Kaminsky, new select board member, has the results of the survey that everyone took. So if no one objects, we'll have a little discussion on that.
Okay, the survey. As most of you know, we sent out a survey with the town report this year. And the purpose was to try and get information on where the majority of the residents of Plymouth want the select board and the planning commission to be spending their efforts and time. So to answer that question, we came up with a 5-question survey. I'm going to give you the results of that. And the questions were, do you want the town to assist in promoting economic development? Do you want more recreational opportunities? Do you want to have economic development, affordable housing options presented to the town? Do you want level funding of the town budget? Or do you want to simply do nothing and maintain the rural character of Plymouth? So we got a really good response. Almost 21% of the surveys that went out were returned. So I'm pretty comfortable that that's a fair representation of what we can get. I'm told statistically when surveys are sent out, you're lucky if you get 5 or 10% return. So a 20%, 21% return is a pretty good response, which I'm grateful for. So the number one choice of the majority of the people who turned in responses was item C, which says, should the town focus on minimizing future tax increases and level funding budgeting the town budget. Now that item had twice as many votes as the next choice. So that's an overwhelming majority of opinion from the town, which speaks volumes to me that that's something we really need to focus on. The second and third choice were actually a tie, and this is a little confusing because the second choice was should the town promote and assist in future economic development, and that got half as many votes as the first choice, but the third choice also got the same amount of votes, which is maintaining rural character of the town. And those vote numbers were the same for each of those last two. So it kind of sends a mixed message. Should we promote economic development or should we maintain the rural character of the town? So the way I interpret that would be that if we are going to have some kind of economic development, it needs to be done in a very thoughtful and careful manner so it fits in with the rural character of the town. That's the way I interpret those second two votes because they're so close. Now the third choice of the voters would, should the town promote and assist with affordable housing opportunities? The fourth, should the town develop recreational opportunities? And the fifth vote, let me get this straight here.
We had a tie for second.
Tied for second, yes, that's right. So the first vote is no taxes increases. The second and third vote, which is a tie, we had the second vote, which is a tie, was to promote economic opportunities with maintaining the rural character. And then we go to the recreational opportunities, and finally was the affordable housing opportunities was last on the list. So the the takeaway I get from this is we have to maintain our tax base and minimize future increases, and any economic development that we need to have has to be done in a careful manner so it sits in properly with the character of the town. And these results will be shared with the Planning Commission, and it just so happens the Planning Commission is in the process of rewriting the zoning laws. So this type of information is really helpful, and I want to thank everybody that took the time to fill these out and return them. If you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to see us after the meeting or state them now if you want.
Yes, Bob.
Okay, so A is 3, is that it?
Yes, Bob.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
B is what number? B coming in.
B is number 4.
Okay, number 4. C is number 1, correct?
Correct. C is number 1.
D is what?
What was the question?
Are you just getting around to filling yours out now?
No, Bob, no, it's easy. It's a good question because it's confusing. D and E is a tie.
Okay, with number 3, correct?
Yes. No, number 2. D and E is number 2, and it's a tie.
Oh, D and E is number, okay, thank you.
Yep. You got it.
Thank you, Rick. Good job. Why am I not surprised that this is a frugal bunch? Before I adjourn this meeting, I want to remind everybody to come out and vote for your town officers and your budget tomorrow. Town officers tomorrow, and it is the Vermont primary. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. I'm going to accept a motion to adjourn, and after that, our representative to the Vermont legislator, Charles Kimball, will address the town, and I'm going to give him 10 minutes, and then at the end, you can stay as long as you want, because, you know, he can talk as long, because the budget will be over. Yes, sir? Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I thought I called on everybody. My apologies.
You did. I wasn't listening, I guess. But my name is Lee Caper, and I'm looking around. I don't see Ralph here or Judy. But as we all know, he's resigned from the board, and I've known Ralph myself for almost 45 years. I'd like to see the minutes of this meeting reflect the appreciation by the town of all the efforts that Ralph has given to us for these years. He's worked very hard for us all. His wife Judy as well, but they're just two characters that belong here in Plymouth, and they've done a lot for us. So if it's appropriate, I'd like to see it entered into the record that the town very much appreciates all their efforts.
Of course. And, you know, thinking about it, maybe be a good thing to get a nice little plaque or something for him as a token of our appreciation. I mean, he did a lot. So that's something the select board can take up.
Just a comment, Lee. Thanks for your comments, and we have had discussions about that, and we do have something in the works. We'll leave it at that.
I'd like to give a round of applause for Ralph for his work.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second? Okay. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Charlie, come on up here. I'll give you my mic. It's a special one.
I don't think I need it, but thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I won't take too much of your time. There's a couple things, though, about development on Route 100. If the country store is for sale, there are grant monies available to help in terms of revitalizing if the town wants to purchase it. There are a lot of examples of towns purchasing general stores and other commercial enterprises. It's really hard to make any money on a general store these days. All right. So anyway, so there are funds available. I think Rick and I have talked about that briefly. And so you can actually find some help in making that happen. And so I'm willing to help. If anybody's interested in doing that, then I'm willing to help as well. Second thing is that the state treasurer is holding $88 million in unclaimed property, and some of it belongs to you. So I'm going to read a few names, and these people are owed money. The Plymouth Fire Department, Michelle Pingree, Lawrence Gaskew, Keith Capolini, Jay Flaster. You might want to talk to him, Jen. The Stephen Egbert, Aaron Kershaw, Tom and Patty Harris, Terry and Willow Bascom, Brandon Berge, Gail Carbonaro, Patricia Hislop, Jinhee Kim, Julia Kowalski, Larry Lines, Michelle Michael, and Peter Phelps. The treasurer owes you money. All right. So you might be on the list.
So that's true. They owe me $15, but I haven't had a chance to get to the bank to notarize the form. You basically go in, you apply for it, they'll send you a form, but you do have to get it notarized, and I've needed $15 that bad to get it.
So what you do is go on to missingmoney.vermont.gov, and you can check out your name. So this is for unpaid payroll checks. This is for life insurance policies that your name is on it, or maybe it's a utility refund, that kind of stuff. So check it out. It's $88 million, and there's real money. Some of it's under $1, but there are some that's over $200. It's worth checking out. All right. So I have these legislative reports. I'll drop them in the back. Just to give you an idea of what's going on in the legislature so far this year. So this is the second year of a biennium, which means the legislature really just hits the ground with a lot of leftover business from the year before. So 2 examples of that. There was a bill passed that died before it got to approval by both bodies. That was paid family leave. That would establish wage replacement for someone to take care of their child, newborn child, or an ill member of their family. It was vetoed by the governor. So that bill then went to an override vote by the legislature and failed by 1 vote in the House. So that bill did not make it. The second bill that was also a leftover was an increase in the minimum wage from $10.96 an hour, which it is right now, to $11.75 an hour in 2021 and $12.55 an hour in 2022. So that passed both houses, went to the governor vetoed it, and then the governor's veto is overridden by 1 vote. So that's a catch up on those big ones. Retail sales of recreational marijuana. We've had this discussion at this town meeting before. That bill was approved by the Senate last year and then came over to the House. The House had almost every committee go through that bill to find out what does it mean for mental health? What does it mean for equality discrimination? What does it mean for safety on the roads? Commerce, taxes, finances. So all of those things were considered by the entire House. It came to a vote last week and was passed. It's now going over to the Senate for their consideration. It's substantially different in 2 ways. One is the taxes on it, because the Senate wanted to have taxes that would benefit the local community where a retail establishment is held. The second one is if a town opts in or opts out. The House bill says a town has to vote to opt in to have a retail establishment. The Senate bill says a town has to opt out. So anyway, so there's some substantial differences. Don't know if it's going to get approved because it still does not have an evidentiary test where you can define impairment if somebody's an impaired driver. It doesn't exist now. You can't have a saliva test that determines that somebody does have THC in their bloodstream or any other drugs, but it doesn't say that they're impaired. So I'm willing to answer questions about that. Act 250 reform bill, we just passed it out last week. It does a lot of different things. It tries to establish whether a new development takes into account climate change and having to deal with extra stormwater runoff. It exempts village centers. Is Plymouth a village center? Do we know? No? Okay. It exempts village centers, designated downtowns, and neighborhood areas from Act 250 permits. So you could, if you decide your village center, get an Act 250 exemption from that. It also exempts recreational trails from Act 250, or at least stands up a different organization to manage recreational trails, which should be very beneficial. And then also protects forestry operations from undue burdens of regulation. So those are some of the things in that bill. A Global Warming Solutions Act, which is really a bad name for it, but that's what it is. It puts in statute goals for the state to achieve in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And then directs the Agency of Natural Resources and a new commission to come up with a plan in order to do that. And also, the part of the plan is to plan for resiliency, again, trying to make sure that our roads and our other infrastructure is able to withstand these increased storms that come, the increased impact from storms. So like Tropical Storm Irene. Let's see. those are the major things. We still have a public employee pension liability of $4.5 billion. The state is contributing $200 million a year to pay down that. That should end in 2038. That's not guaranteed. It's a lot of money. And this is a result of kicking the can down the road a few years ago when budget times were tight. And the state said, you know what, we're just not going to contribute to the pension fund this year. We're going to let market appreciation take care of that shortfall. It didn't happen. So now we have all these public employees, whether it's teachers, state or municipal employees, state employees, and they're looking at that deficit in the pension fund. So those are the major issues. There are many, many others that are going on. Happy to answer questions about what's going on in the legislature. Yes?
About kicking the can down the road, and what I'm going to do is I have 3 questions. I'm going to try and lump them together.
Should I write these down? I'm not.
No, you'll know,
Okay.
because
Right.
we already started talking. It's about schools.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this one first, but my second 2 are actually really more important to me at the moment. But there is a school building construction moratorium that's been in place for 10 years or so.
13 years, yeah.
13 years. So, and Woodstock is now having discussions about
Yep.
a new school, and we hear all about what's going on in Burlington, and theirs are a little bit bigger ticket than
Yep.
ours, but still, that's a big ticket. So let me just do the other 2, and then I'll sit down. I had a nice conversation with Paige Hiller.
Yes.
And what she said to me, which was kind of interesting, is because we keep going, how come we're not talking about our school budget here? And Plymouth is totally forgotten. We're not listed in the paper when they talk about, number of pupils, and I think last year they did list CLA and tax rate per town projected. There was some discussion about that in the Mountain Times a couple of weeks ago, but haven't been able to really get what is going on, how many pupils do we have here, how many equalized pupils do we have here, what's our tax rate projected going to be, and then finally, and we ran into this when we had control over it, or had more control over it, where the numbers of, the data that comes in that you need in order to come up with an appropriate budget doesn't really coincide, Sandy's going to tell me, but doesn't really coincide well with a March, an early March town meeting. A lot of their information comes in kind of, when they have to submit it, it has to be printed, stuff like that. So my question is there a possibility of having a later school budget vote rather than trying to jam it in now? Because what's happened is in our booklets we have a figure, and I'm not talking about the difference between with Barnard or without Barnard. We have the, just say the budget figure. There was a different figure that was printed in the paper, and then we got another, because I
Right.
voted absentee, I got something in the mail that said, oh, guess what? It's $5 million more than what it originally was. And then when I tried to find out why, I kind of couldn't really find out why. It was a different number. Something about possibly the difference was actually something that comes from, much like we have in the town, where there's excess funding, or there's grants, or there's some other thing. But $5 million just seemed like a really big difference. And that's what everyone's going to be voting on tomorrow. So, sorry, I threw a lot
Okay,
at
so
you.
I'll try to encapsulate that in a few things. You're right, there is a big disconnect between what the school budget is and what you know about on a local basis.
Yes.
And that is a problem of the structure that we have currently. It also is this problem that we've had since Act 60 was approved, where now you don't feel like maybe you can control your school budget because other school districts, what they do with their budget impacts what your tax rate is. So those are all parts of the things, and also because of income sensitivity, where 70% of primary residents receive some kind of refund of their property tax reduction adjustment, because of it's limited to a certain percentage of their income, then it's not always a direct correlation between what your tax bill does and what you owe. So there are a number of reasons why property owners may feel disconnected from the school budget. Now, the communication, when the school has had informational meetings, there are less than 30 people that show up at these things. So it's really too bad that people don't take more interest, because that is the biggest part of your property tax bill is your education tax. So there are ideas. I talked to Paige yesterday about this, I think after she spoke with you. And it was about trying to come up with some regional meetings, taking it on the road a little bit to come out into the community saying, here's your school budget. I'm not sure. She implied that that required a change in law. I don't know that it does, but there should be something in that. The timing has been an issue for years, and I remember that from 25 years ago. I don't know about the last one on school construction. There's currently $500 million in contemplated school construction projects. That's a lot of money. By comparison, the annual capital bill for the state to take care of state-owned properties like the Calvin Coolidge Historic Site is $123 million for 2 years. So, and the bond rating that we have for the state, it has gone down because of the bond market's rating of can the state reasonably pay it back based on the population, based on the economy, and so that bond rating has gone down. So the treasurer doesn't want to bond for more money. So then what do you do? So that's where we are, is trying to figure out how do we rebuild these schools where local taxpayers can't afford to pay more, and how do we get that done? So there was a hearing at the State House, and Mary Beth Banyos, the superintendent, went up and testified, and it's great questions. There's no answer yet. So Massachusetts charges a 1% increase on the sales tax, and they say if you want a school, you can pick from one of these 4 options. That's it. But that 1% goes and funds that. So I'm not suggesting that we put a 1% increase onto the sales tax, but that is something that could be considered.
My only just follow-up to that is really just, you know, we were able, and I don't mind, I thought, to be honest, and I don't know if everyone agrees with this, but I thought the consolidation was okay. I think, you know, the Woodstock school system and actually the Killington schools, all the schools are very, very fine, and it was unfortunate that we couldn't keep our school going. But what I'm really talking about is, you know, just getting a better information flow.
Yep.
And, you know, I actually planned on going to the meeting in Woodstock, but it was snowing and I had a variety of reasons why I couldn't go. But so anyway, if there is some way where we could actually even include it again in our town meeting, because I know there was some comments about whether or not legally we can actually do that. That was, Jen and I had that conversation, and Paige mentioned it too. So maybe we could just find out if it's okay if we just include a, you know.
Possibly we could follow up with you with Jen as well afterwards and try to figure out if that's possible.
She and I talked.
You didn't ask me the questions that you asked, some of those questions you just asked. And we have a nascent community engagement committee that's met about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and I'm on it because one of the reasons that I wanted to be the school rep was so that we would have communications, because I also felt totally out of the loop. So we're working to do a better job of getting the word out. And I mean, I'm really fighting to say we need to not have all the meetings in Woodstock because people in Plymouth.
Yeah.
So they don't go. Yeah, it's too far.
That'd be great. Yeah. No, that'd be great.
So we're working on that, and we know that that's an issue, and we do want to communicate to the board.
Are there any other questions that I can answer, Keith?
On the Act 54 thing, you know, the marijuana legalization, the vote was 90 to 54 or 56, something like that, wasn't it? You were in the I column. I'm just wondering if you could tell the folks at Plymouth what your thoughts were behind your vote.
Sure, thanks for that. I had voted against the tax and regulate system every time it came up. I had voted originally for the legalization of marijuana when it was a grow your own situation. So you grow your own, it wasn't going to lead to proliferation. My main concern has always been about, does this make it so that more people are going to be smoking marijuana or using marijuana, because it's not just smoking. And that's something that I didn't want to see. I mean, there are enough on a personal level. But then after I saw what the committee was going through and trying to figure out how to regulate an unregulated market, that's what really convinced me that maybe we should be doing something on a state level. Currently in the black market, because there is no legal market, there are some sellers who are lacing marijuana with fentanyl. as a way to get kids addicted to fentanyl. It's an entry into the drug market, and that is problematic. So the purity of the product is something that needs to be done. The second thing is trying to regulate what the potency is of the marijuana that's in the market, right? So in this bill, it was reducing the THC content to 30%, and also in some kind of tinctures, it was 60%. So try to bringing it down and regulating it. Right now, there is no regulation on that. Also about commerce and how does it work. Right now, it's still federally illegal, right? So the people that operate in this business, even the medical marijuana establishments, which are permitted by Vermont law, still illegal on the federal level, they can't use traditional banking systems, they can't use traditional insurance, they can't use traditional financing vehicles of any kind. So they have to seek out alternatives. The Vermont State Employees Credit Union gives them some, but the concern also is then, well, how are they going to get the capital in order to finance their operation too? They can't take out a bank loan. So what we wanted to find out from a Commerce Department and Commerce perspective, I'm on that committee, is to make sure that we know who the financiers are, what their backgrounds are. We want to do a criminal background check. We want to know who owns the establishments, anybody with a controlling interest. So there's a lot of things that have gone into this that I said, okay, that's enough. The other thing that I liked was that in states where it has established a tax and regulate model, the use of marijuana by young people has gone down. Maybe it's not cool anymore, maybe they can't get it anymore, I don't know. Right now, it's easier for teenagers to get marijuana than it is for them to get beer. That wasn't the case when I was in high school, but that is the case now. And so it's easier to conceal, it's easier to vape, conceal in the clothing. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that's going on now. So if you can reduce that, because studies have shown that a developing brain under 25 years old is really affected by using marijuana. So that's where I came down on it. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I was a little confused about something that you said on whether it would affect on log trucks on back roads, out-of-state log trucks, or out of town definitely, and some of them out of state, and our back roads that are heavyweight. Did something you say address that?
No, but there is something in Act 250 to try to provide some protections so people that are involved in the forest products industry cannot be unfairly constrained from doing business. And it's not about back roads in that sense. I'll give you an example. Colston's firewood producers. Anybody know where they are on Route 100? They're a large firewood provider. So they had permit conditions on their permit to operate that were really onerous. Like they couldn't come out of their driveway and start up the hill. They had to go down, drive down the hill, turn around and come back up so the noise wouldn't be too much for the neighbor. They couldn't operate for weekends, for many, many different weekends, because the owners the second homeowners next door might come up and use their property. So there were a lot of conditions that were put on the property that were not really conducive to maintaining their business. And the noise that was being generated from traffic going by was actually more than the noise was being generated by the kiln and the operating machinery and by the production. So it does nothing about overweight trucks on back roads. That's still permitted by the select board. That doesn't change anything around that. But because of climate change, and I don't want to tie it necessarily to this, but the season to do logging is much, much shorter because you have to do it when the ground is frozen. And so that really used to be 3 or 4 months, and now it's maybe 2 to 3 months in the wintertime. You can store logs. Again, where do you store logs? Do you need an Act 250 permit for that? So that's what that's about. And I know that is an issue on Line Hill Road right now, right? Yeah. Anything else I can answer for you? Please do contact me. My email address is on this. And I'll put it in the back. And if you're ever up in the State House, please let me know. Love to show you around. It's a great building. It's a pretty cool place to be. But I really enjoy representing you in Montpelier, and it's been a joy for me. And just let me know if there's something I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. I've already adjourned the meeting. Enjoy your night.